Welcome along to Man in the Mirror. It's Hayden here. And my guest this week, I'm delighted to let you know that I'm joined by Vesa Kalho, who is the head of beauty buying at Fenwick. Vesa, thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you for having me.
It's Friday afternoon. You're still toiling away in the office there.
I am.
And as I mentioned before we started, I'm really interested in this kind of sector of the industry because I think most people can imagine some of the roles around what the perfumer does or someone that kind of is the brand founder or it comes up with something. But I think this role within retail of the buyer is a fascinating one and something we'll definitely get into a bit more. But I think maybe let's start even people might eagle-eyed people having a listen or looking on the name might spot a name that sounds like it's not British. And so you're
No,
from
not
Finland.
just a British name. No.
It's not difficult. And already I was, having to take a run up and at the pronunciation and everything. But did you? So you're from Finland. Did you grow up there, or did you come here at
Yeah,
quite a young
I
age?
grew up in Finland, and I moved to London 23 years ago now.
Did you?
So yeah, so I have
And
now actually.
what brought you
I always wanted
adventure?
to. Yeah,
Like
I always wanted
creative?
to live in a big city,
Yeah,
and there's 5 million people living in Finland, which is less than in Greater London.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that says it all already. But I've now actually lived longer in the UK than I lived in Finland.
And do you consider this home now? I mean,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. This is
yeah.
my homeland.
You're a London guy now.
Yeah. Exactly. Don't get me wrong. I love going back to Finland,
Yeah.
but London is my home.
And were you from one of the cities in Finland, or were you from a more rural
I
area?
was from a city, but I think in the UK standard is more probably a town.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was a city. So I've always been a city boy.
yeah. And going back to sort of childhood days in Finland, this role that you have now, were things such as beauty, skincare, fragrance, were they important to you from a young age? Did you have that interest from earlier on?
Um, They were, but at the
Mm.
same time, I didn't know that there were jobs in this sector.
Yeah,
I didn't know that there was beauty buyer role. I didn't know that existed, and I think that's why I probably always I thought I wanted to work in fashion,
did you?
but then, yeah, but then I fell into beauty and never looked back. Always in
Yeah,
beauty now.
yeah. But do you remember from your youth, were there fragrances that you liked at home? Were presumably the same sort of brands were on sale at home? Were
Yeah,
they?
they were,
Yeah,
and I always say that the one that really started it for me, kind of like from the fragrance point of view, was CK1. Like
yes, yes,
Alberto Morias just did an amazing
iconic.
job with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that fragrance just changed my life.
yeah. I love to hear that. When it has a real impact on someone and sort of
Yeah.
changes things. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And so, when you first came, did you get into the retail world? Was that your first sort of job here, or did you come and study first?
It pretty much was my first job,
Mm.
yes. And I started on the shop floor at Harrods.
Did you go straight to Harrods?
Pretty much, yeah.
Did you?
I did do a couple other retailers, but for a very short stint. So in that sense, that Harrods was my first proper job.
Yeah, and you had a good long spell, didn't you, in the
Yes.
famous Knightsbridge store?
Yeah, the Green Palace in Knightsbridge.
Yeah. And um, did you start in the sort of fragrance and beauty section and
Yeah,
work your way
so
up?
there at the time there was a department called beauty apothecary, which was kind of like that niche beauty that had
Yeah.
bit of everything in, and that's where I started as a sales associate. And actually, I worked a lot with Diptyque at the
Did you?
time. Yeah,
Such a
and actually,
wonderful
yeah,
brand. Yeah.
exactly. And at the time, it was much more heavily candle-led brand, whereas now obviously it has got personal fragrance as well and everything else as well, with from home accessories.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess you worked your way up from the
Yeah.
sales
So
assistant through to buying.
yeah. So well, I worked my way up to be the department manager.
Right.
Um, and then after a while, I was like, I've done my bit in customer facing
Hmm.
uh, role. And then I was like, what else should I do? And to be honest, when I even started at Harrods, I wasn't really aware of the buying role and what it was.
Hmm.
And whilst I was then working at Harrods and saw like what the buying teams were doing and kind of like that creativeness and all of that, having that awareness what was going to happen, because they'd seen all the products that were about to launch and all of that. So I was like,
Hmm.
you know what, that sounds a really interesting job, and I'd love to try that.
So
And
really, I'd love to know, how would you define it as a job for people to understand the role of a buyer? How do you see
oh
it?
my, put me on the spot now.
Tell me how you do your job. No, I
Exactly.
think it feels like quite an opaque world. Quite difficult to understand. I guess for the customer,
Yeah,
we understand. We all have experiences with sales assistants, and you can understand that. But what's the
exactly.
buying role?
And, as a buyer, you're supposed to find those brands and products that the customers want, and you should have, in a way, that knowledge that what is about to happen.
Mm,
You are supposed to drive those trends, create those trends.
yeah,
So kind of like, and what is it that you're going to be backing? Just like in fashion as well, the buyers, what are the styles, the colors that they buy in.
mm,
That's kind of like what the buyer does, kind of like in a broad sense
yeah.
of that role in that sense. But at some moment, now you have to be very strategic, kind of like thinking ahead and kind of like planning a lot of that.
Yeah. So I guess you have to understand some of the data points and things like that as well. It's
Yes,
not just sort of finger in the air and say, "Oh, this brand sounds cool." There must be a
exactly.
myriad of information points and
Yeah.
data and all that.
And definitely kind of like 10 years ago, it was probably morphing in the air, whereas now
Mm,
it is much more data driven, that the data will tell you so much. But at the same time, I think we all have to be mindful of that you shouldn't just trust data
yeah,
because even data can be incorrect.
yeah. So
So
there's some instinct to it as well.
exactly. I think if you use that as your guidance, I think that's the main thing.
Yeah. And in terms of in terms of the sort of brands, is it that they need either in your current role or in Harrods, would they need a certain number of well, they call it SKUs, don't they? But certain number of products in the range before it would be considered. You can't just come in. Would you come in with one fragrance? Is that impossible?
Well, I think on fragrance you probably could,
Mm,
but necessarily not on a skincare brand you could come and do that. So I think it also varies from a category point of view that, on fragrance there might be a one great fragrance and that could create a brand in itself.
mm,
But at the same time there are less and less of those that can make it happen at the same time.
right.
That usually buyers would be looking for a range of some kind.
Yes. Yeah. And we talked about trends and looking to the future, and obviously data and sales information is part of that. But that piece around trying to look into your crystal ball and imagine some of the fragrance notes or whether it's in skincare and makeup, what are the things that you look for? Is it about studying reports, or do you go to trade fairs, or read, or is it a sort of combination of all of those things? What are the sort of creative things that you do to try and sort of
I,
forecast and trends
I
things?
think you have to be aware of so many different things.
Mm,
I have to say that social media drives a lot of that these days. That
yeah,
kind of like you have to be aware what's happening in social media. But at the same time, luckily it's not just me. Luckily, I've got a team as well. So like
yeah,
Sometimes I am trusting definitely more of my younger generation team members to tell me at times what they have seen.
The
Um,
TikTokers.
exactly, exactly. But at the same time, I do still go to trade fairs because at the same time, trade fairs is a good way to understand what's happening in the market because you see so much in one place. So you start to understand. For example, fragrance trade shows for me is really interesting because you start to pick up, say, certain notes coming through as a trend
Mm,
or a certain type of packaging, for example. So you like,
yeah,
okay, like I can see this coming along. So what are we doing that we're ready for that?
mm, I've got you. Now that makes sense. And do things like exclusives, does that play a big part in your thinking? So now in your current role at Fenwick, do you look to, would you want to have a particular brand just for you? Is that something that's part of your thinking, or is it you would like a certain fragrance from their line just for you? Is that something that happens a bit more now?
Well, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want an exclusive.
Mm,
And I think all the retailers want something. And, that's the whole point. Having a point of difference,
yeah.
is it an exclusive or what is it that is the point of difference so that the customers understand why they decide to shop with that retailer in this instance.
Yes.
And obviously, with the online retailers, it's obviously made it even tougher than to compete. But obviously, my background is brick and mortar retailer that
Mm,
has got the digital platform. So obviously, that's great in that sense. But at the same time, it makes it harder to compete at times because pure players many times are first to the market with brands and products.
yeah. I guess it is a sort of changing landscape, isn't it?
Yeah,
And all consumers, I suppose, it's no different. Whatever the sector, that people will do research, or they'll see things on social media or online, and yeah, that piece around trying to make sure they head to Fenwick and head in your direction.
exactly.
That
Yeah,
must be quite a challenge, isn't it? And so I suppose exclusives are something that helps there.
yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Well, look, we're going to talk a bit more about your role and buying and how things are at Fenwick. But on the podcast, and I think particularly in your case, having such a long history at Harrods and now at Fenwick in terms of buying, so you see all kinds of products and innovations. I'm really fascinated to know about your own morning and evening routine, Vesa. So what have you
How
got
long have
quite
you got?
yeah, I know we'll do the extended cut where we'll do 5 hours worth. But have you managed to sort of get yourself a kind of tight edit of products? Have you stayed quite loyal to things? What does your morning routine look
It's not a tight edit, and I'm not loyal. And I think
like?
I think
Try
that's my
lots of
job.
things.
That's my job, not to be
That's
loyal.
that's true.
I need to try products, and in that sense, that's that's the fun part being a beauty buyer. You get to try so many different products,
Yeah.
and I do think that customers probably expect me to try as many products as possible before they even land in our stores on the
Mm,
shelves. But I have to say that kind of like at the same time, I think I do have my beauty steps,
yeah.
but the products change in that sense. And in that sense, that I think I'm not a morning person, but actually my morning
You're
routine,
not.
no, but my
No.
morning routine takes longer than my evening routine.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Whereas my evening routine is kind of like just get it done quickly and to
Flash
bed.
your face. Yeah. Clean your teeth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in that sense, that kind of like my evening would be probably like, washing my face, toner, moisturizer, eye cream, brush my teeth, that kind of like type. Whereas kind of like my morning routine just takes forever,
Does it?
literally. Yes.
How
Uh,
how long do you give yourself? I mean, do you genuinely sort of need to give yourself a good amount of
an
time to
hour?
get? Do you?
Yeah.
So if you're in a
And
hurry and you oversleep, you're just like, oh God, I need to kind of condense
I
all
don't
this.
I don't oversleep because I make sure that I've got my alarm set so that I have got enough time for my routine.
I
But in
love
that sense
this.
that obviously for me in the morning, like when I wake up, I usually wash my face and shave. And
Shave every
then
day. Do
I
you
do
shave every
actually.
day? Yeah.
Yeah. I've never grown a beard. I don't think beard would suit me, so I've never tried it though.
It'd be interesting though. I mean, as a complete aside, do you think, like, if you, what sort of hair do you have? Do you think it would be quite a full beard? Like, what do you think it would look like
I
if it
think it
was
would be
there?
quite full, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, so
but
but
you
yeah,
don't have one, so.
no, I don't. Yeah, because I shave every morning. In that sense, but actually, then what I
Are you a
do
wet? Sorry, are you a wet shaver?
wet shave, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. What I do usually most morning is also whilst I'm having my first coffee of the day, I usually put on a face mask.
Do you?
Most days,
Yeah.
yes. And it depends almost like what does my skin feel like,
Mm,
what do I feel like I need? Because it might be that one morning it's a clay mask because I feel that, clogged pores.
yeah.
One morning it might be that, what, I just need a lot of hydration, so hydrating mask. Some morning it might be just a sheet mask, for example, in
Yeah.
that sense. And that's why I say that's why my morning routine takes actually longer than my evening routine because I hardly ever do a mask in the evening because I'm just like, I'm so tired and I just want to get into bed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But in that sense, that kind of like from there, kind of like after shower, I would probably use kind of like a toner, essence, serum, eye cream, moisturizer. There might be another serum as well. There might be another eye mask or eye serum. So, yeah.
And again, you're duty bound, I suppose, to try different brands and
Yes.
so what about at the moment? Are there certain things that sort of connected with and that
There are
you're
some
using?
there's some products that I always go back to in that sense that I'm like, obviously I need to try something else, but then
Mm,
I'm like, you know what, I like to go back to the what I've been using. At the moment, I'm really enjoying the Dior on-off cleanser. That's
right.
really nice, like a
I've not
creamy
tried that.
cleanser.
It's good.
It's really nice, yes. And then a serum that I go back to, like swear by, is BioEffect EGF serum, and that kind of like for me has been like this game changer.
Yeah.
And it's
Why do
just
you think
like
it's so good?
I think because I don't, I'm almost like scared of retinols.
Mm,
So I want to have, this for me is kind of like a better type of serum that kind of like accelerates the cell turnover,
yeah.
but it doesn't leave my skin. Well, I suffer from redness on my skin anyway, so that's why for me I don't want to use retinol just in case that it would
Yes.
make it
Yeah.
worse.
I see.
So that's kind of like the serum that I just go back to all the time.
Mm. And what about hair, Vesa? Are there certain products or certain sort of category of products that you've found that you've sort of drawn
Yeah,
to?
I think for me, kind of like I like using kind of like those salt texture spray type of
Mm,
products.
me too.
And the one that I'm using at the moment, which I find actually really good, is Damon Barber.
Yes, I know that range. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I've not.
and that
I know it. I've not used it, but it's good.
I have to say it's the best I've tried so far.
Is it?
Yeah, and yeah, I'm hooked on it, and I'm using the shampoo and conditioner at the moment as well, and they're
And do you
both.
sell that? Is that at Phoenix?
I don't actually, but probably should do by giving them like a black hair.
No, somebody else. That's funny. A friend of mine who's a hairdresser recommends them, and she raves about the Damon Barber stuff for men. Says it's
Yeah,
very good. So,
yeah.
oh, that's good. And I guess fragrance is another one that's almost impossible, isn't it? Because do you have a big collection anyway? Do you get to bring a lot home
Yes.
or have buy a lot?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And my partner is always saying that, where are we going to put all of this?
Where is it going to go? And
Exactly.
and have you found that it is something that you want to kind of display and make a feature of, or is it just kind of shoved where are the bottles shoved wherever they can go, kind of thing?
I think it's a bit of both. I
Yeah.
think the ones that I use almost like daily and are kind of like those kind of like more special, they're probably out, somewhere, visible. But then there's like cupboards full of fragrances and, I don't know. I try to go with my fragrances by my mood, in that sense that I'm
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
what's the mood, or what am I doing today? Kind of like what's happening today. Sometimes it is like trying to find it then in the cupboard in the morning, be like, where is it now?
Yeah, yeah. Some
When you
needle in
need
a haystack stuff. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And do you think you're drawn to a certain sort of profile of fragrance, or you do you
I
like
yeah.
everything?
Don't get me wrong. I like most fragrances, and I'm passionate about fragrance.
Mm.
But I think anyone who knows me really well knows that I'm really into iris fragrances.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of like my current favorite one is the eccentric molecule with the
Oh,
iris
plus
note.
Iris.
Yes.
Yeah. So good. So
Yeah.
good. I really love. I mean, I love the eccentric molecules range anyway, but that recent addition of the One Plus Mandarin and Tea and Iris,
Exactly.
it's it's genius, isn't it? Because it's obviously adding one element, but it doesn't make it over complicated. It's still a
No.
very sort of clean profile, and
Exactly.
yeah, the Mandarin one I love.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll put the original on and then add just Mandarin just to kind of amp
Yeah.
it up. I think it's
Yeah.
yeah really good.
And my other favorite fragrance was from Atelier Cologne, their
Oh
Silver
yes,
Iris,
yeah.
which was my kind of like more of a signature scent. But now that the brand is not available in the UK, and I think they discontinued that fragrance because I was probably the only one wearing that in the world.
You were the sole person that wore. Have
Exactly.
they gone? Because there was a store in Covent Garden. We're talking about Atelier Cologne that was in Covent Garden. Yeah,
Yeah.
have they gone?
Yeah. They're no longer
Oh,
available in the UK.
do you know what? Just because, or they just focused on other territories or
I
something.
think they focused other territories.
Mm. That
So
was a
yeah.
shame because it again, yeah, it's a really kind of unpretentious range and all colourful and those nice leather
Exactly.
holders. Yeah, I really liked it. I like the Atelier
Yeah.
Cologne. There was
Exactly.
a what was it? One of the Clementine, California, I think. Some of
Oh
those
yes.
really
That's
juicy ones.
beautiful.
Really good.
Yes.
Really
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about today, Vesa? Are you in an iris today, or what are you wearing, as they say at
What
the
what
Oscars?
what am I wearing today? Ooh, that's a very good question. I'm wearing Glossier.
Oh, are
You?
you Glossier?
Yes. So another Irish fragrance.
Yes. Great.
Yes. Yeah. But I have to say that I really like Bleu de Chanel still. Like,
Yeah.
for me, Bleu de Chanel is a classic.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And do you stick with the sort of mainstay fragrance, or have you got into the elixirs and all that stuff, or do you go
I usually wear the
parfum?
Eau de Parfum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Exactly. Yeah.
And obviously in your role, it encompasses, as you've said, the fragrance, skincare, and makeup, right? So the
Yes.
whole beauty
Whole beauty.
spectrum. Might be a stupid question, but how do you approach the makeup side of things? Do you obviously you've got a bigger team as well, but I can totally imagine trying the skincare, trying the fragrance. I'm sure you could try the makeup, but do you
At the
have the
back of
knowledge?
the back of my hands, I will try the makeup.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But do you have to draw on other colleagues a bit more when it comes to makeup, or is it still the same sort of process of making your decisions as the
I
head?
think s- I think at the end it's still the same process in that sense.
Mm,
But at the same time, I would probably say that I will definitely lean more into fragrance and skincare than makeup from
mm,
my expertise side of things.
yeah,
But at the same time, you've got if you've got a great team, there are going to be people who got their strength then in makeup, so that helps.
yeah,
But at the same time, you just need to look at more of what is the brand doing? Who is the customer?
yeah,
Is the customer with us already? And what do they want to bring to the market?
yeah. So there's still those same processes and thoughts that go into it, and I guess you've got the same amount of data and information and sales histories and all those things.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what do you? Is it possible to talk about a typical Fenwick's customer, like in compared to? I know obviously different people shop at all sorts of different stores,
Yes.
but is there a profile? Do you think of a kind of Fenwick's customer?
I would say yes and no. I
Mm,
think the challenge is that we've got 8 stores in total different locations, and then we've got our website. So in that sense, that you can't say that I've got the same customer in all of the 8 stores. So
of
because
course.
we've got a stores in Newcastle and in York, but then we've got in Brent Cross and Kingston as well. So kind of
Mm,
like they're so different those customer base. But I said not kind of like I think for me it's important that kind of like we have that cohesive brand selection available, and not all of the brands are available in all stores.
I was going to ask you that. So there will be some variation in
Yeah,
different regions, and
I think it's important, but at the same time, to do it in a scale as well. That some brands are bigger in different locations because it depends on the customer base.
mm,
But I do think that the Fenwick customer is looking for something different, something that they don't come across everywhere. So kind of
mm,
like for us, it's just important to do that, edit the curation and the selection with that customer in mind.
I've got you. Right, that makes sense. And we talked about this idea of the buyer, looking into the future and trying to predict trends. What are you seeing this year, Vesa? And we're in 2024. If people are listening as it comes out in well, early March, yeah, what's going on right now? What's exciting, or what do you see sort of coming down the track in the coming months?
Well, I think it's interesting how fragrance is just developing more and more in that niche arena,
Yes.
in that sense that that is a way for you to show your personality,
Mm,
to have something that not everyone else is wearing. And that we're definitely seeing a bigger trend at Fenny, definitely. Within actual fragrance, it's interesting how we're going back to those gourmand notes.
yes. Yeah.
Like vanilla is coming strong
There's a
this year.
lot of vanilla releases, isn't there?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And some of that seems to be, again, I suppose, any of these different trends are invariably driven by social media and TikTok and things. But yeah, it seems like a lot of gourmand content, isn't there? And whether it's
Exactly.
pistachio or vanilla
Ex-
or all that kind of thing. But yeah, I guess it's hard to sort of stay ahead of it, isn't it? Because we all know the amount of time it would take to develop, whether it's skincare, makeup, or fragrance. All these things would take a long time to develop and bring to market. So it's not as though it's like where if a song comes out that's really popular, it's no good. It's no good someone sort of doing that again and releasing it 6 months later because it'll all be changed, won't it? So maybe it's similar in this world. Is it that by the time it'd take even longer, wouldn't it, to develop a
Yeah,
fragrance or a new skincare product that actually came to market? So you kind of
yeah,
need to be ahead of that stuff, don't
yeah. And I do think that kind of like what TikTok has done for fragrance has been great
you? Mm,
in that sense that it has definitely accelerated sales for fragrance, which some of the other mediums didn't do in that sense.
mm,
And it's definitely reaching a new, different audience, which is great in that sense that there's more and more people again appreciating
yeah,
fragrance.
they're being exposed to it, aren't they?
Exactly, because
Yeah.
obviously we went into stage where it was almost like no one was wearing a fragrance, and it was like if you're wearing
Mm.
a fragrance, it was almost like why are you wearing a fragrance? Whereas for me, it's like I have to wear a fragrance every day, kind of like that's just part of my getting ready routine. That
Yeah,
I feel slightly naked if I don't wear a fragrance.
me too. Yeah, and do you see as well that it seems like there's a real move to more powerful, intense fragrances, and these kind of these fragrances that have much more power and projection.
Yeah.
That's it. There seems to be a bit more of that kind of
Yeah,
stuff
in
going on.
that sense that we're going more and more into eau de parfums and elixirs,
Yeah.
in that sense that and parfums in that sense that men's fragrances didn't used to have parfum strength.
Mm,
Now there are more and more brands having the parfum strength available.
mm,
But at the same time, kind of like I do think that you know people are much more educated in fragrance and they understand that the strength in that sense that you get more for your money.
Yeah, and I suppose it's part of that sort of conspicuous consumption, isn't it? That that it's certainly a view that some people would like in the way that they wear certain clothes, and they want their fragrance to kind of be a representation of themselves, but also for it to for it to be noticeable and for them to be
Exactly.
able to say, "I'm wearing X, Y, Z."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
And in that sense that when you look at the millennials and the Gen Z, that they are all wearing those stronger versions of fragrances now.
mm,
Whereas when I was young, it was more about the eau de toilette.
yes, yeah, definitely. Me too. Me too. And we touched on talked about men there, and I in the fact that Man in the Mirror, a lot of it's aimed at men and just trying to kind of broaden people's palette and present these things as accessible. Like, it's really interesting to me with your insight, just how you see or have you seen a shift in how men approach fragrance these days in store? Has it changed what you've ended up putting on the shelves over the last few years? Are things changing?
Yeah, I think what has changed that and don't get me wrong, it still happens, but I do think that it used to be that it was the wives and girlfriends who bought the fragrance that they liked for their other half,
Yeah,
whereas now we see more men coming to the counter to select their fragrance, what they want to wear.
making their own choices. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And do you think it's harder or easier for brands to gain traction and get a foothold in the market now? Do you think some of these things like social media actually can blow up a brand and bring it to popularity a bit quicker, or is it still like turning an oil tanker to kind of
Yeah.
make
Well,
progress?
I think social media definitely helps,
Mm.
but I think it's more of a what's the longevity, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And as a retailer, I don't want it to be just a quick flash sales, but then it doesn't continue. For me, it's important that it continues that kind of like not necessarily even a trend, but that kind of like trajectory that the sales are there.
And that's such a good insight. I think for you to have this awareness that these things potentially need to stay on either online or on the store shelves. It, it it's not it's not something that's here today, gone tomorrow. You need to
Exactly.
commit to a certain number of months or years or whatever, because you're putting in point of sale and commitments and
Exactly.
sales staff and all those things. So you want
Exactly.
something that's got a future, right?
Yeah, obviously it's easier if you are online only retailer. Like I said earlier, that it's easier for you to come into the market quicker, and in that sense, that then you can walk away from it quicker if it's not performing anymore. Whereas,
Yeah.
but if it is in brick and mortar retailer, there are other things to be considerate. For example, how it is positioned in the store.
Mm. And what do we obviously got this mix now, obviously, and people order online, pick up in store, check it
Yeah,
out on store, order
yeah,
online, and all
exactly.
the combinations. I mean, what do you see in terms of trying to bring people into the bricks and mortar store and create a bit of interest and retail theatre and all these things? Are there certain things that you do at Fenwick to try and entice the customers in to have the real life experience?
Yeah, and I think what you just mentioned there, the retail theatre, for brick and mortar retailer, it's all about the retail theatre, and
Mm,
all about that experience.
yeah,
Because why would the customer come into the store if they can have it delivered to their home? You know, what is it that what drives them into the store?
mm,
The service and the experience.
mm,
But at the same time, within beauty, as we know, people want to touch, feel, smell, taste. So you can't do that virtually.
yeah. So, well, what sort of things do you try and do? Does Phoenix have a program of events and
Yeah, and
meeting the brand owners, things like that?
exactly. We want to give access to our customers to the brand founders,
Mm,
fragrance trainers, makeup artists, all of that. In that sense, that you know customers want to know more about the brands, not just what the product is and says, and
Yeah.
what is the marketing doing. In that sense, that they want to have more insight.
Yeah. Who's behind it?
Exactly.
What's it about?
Exactly. Yeah. And we host a lot of events in our stores, which is great. And it can be from a scale of like 10 customers to all the way to 100 customers.
Yeah.
So it just depends on like, the brand, the focus, all of that.
Yeah. I think I came along to meet Olivia Cresp at Fenwick.
Yes.
They did a event with Acro.
Macro, yes.
Yeah, which is great, and yeah, it was a lovely environment. It was a sort of press event, but
Yes.
yeah, the London store's beautiful. It's yeah, really a good place to experience fragrance. And obviously, I'm going to link to the store and some of the products you mentioned. But as always in the podcast, Vesa, I like to find out about your own ideas around self-image. So with the
Yeah.
name of the podcast being Man in the Mirror, I wonder how you feel about what looks back at you in the mirror. Are you because I notice, I mean, I obviously whatever you're doing there in terms of skincare is working really well because you have
Oh, thank you.
you have a really amazing complexion. But how do you view yourself?
Well, like I said, I spend an hour in front of the mirror every morning.
Plenty of time to look.
Exactly. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have to say, I am happy, when I look myself in the mirror, but at the same time, it's not like, I don't have to do anything for it in that sense
You
that,
put the work in.
exactly. You have to put the work in. And
ten
in that,
thousand hours or whatever it is.
exactly. But it's almost like, I go to the gym 3 to 4 times a
Do
week.
you? What do you like doing? What's your thing in the gym?
Well, I like to go to reformer Pilates
Right.
and spinning and bar. So kind of like three different kind of like exercise that I like to do. So I like to mix it up. But in that sense that's how I then look at my skincare in that sense that it is like the gym for your face. So I use different
Yeah.
kind of like a beauty tools, for example. One of my favorite beauty tools is a Nurse Jamie Uplift roller that you just roll around your face, so it'll give that lifting for your face, especially first
Does
thing in
that
the
sort of
morning.
tighten things up? Is that?
Yes, exactly.
So I've seen some of those. Is there a company? Isn't Face Gym? Haven't they got some of that kind
Yes,
of stuff?
they
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't
and
tried. Maybe
lotions.
I should try those because I'll
Yeah.
put that there. But
um,
do you like those products? They
I,
work well.
yeah, they do.
A
But
little
in
way
that
of demonstrating, but
exactly, yeah. But in that sense that I'd love to go for a facial even once a month, but it's impossible to find that time.
yeah.
So in that sense, that is like, what can I do at home myself?
Mm,
So yeah, but again, like I might have a great complexion, thank you, but at the same
you
time,
do.
it's not a natural in that sense that I have some products like concealer, for example, so I can't necessarily go out barefaced completely, but at the same time, I've got access to the best products.
Of course. And in terms of those kind of products in Fenwick and in store, are there products that would now lean slightly more male, or are you shopping from products that are sort of gender free? What's your stance
Yeah,
on all
I
that?
think for me,
Because
kind of
obviously
like
there is male products now, isn't there?
there are. We don't necessarily do men specific makeup, and at the same time, I'm like, if it's a makeup, then it should be good for everyone. Does it have to be specific? For example, concealer. I really like NARS and Laura Mercier
Mm,
concealer, so they're really good. I like um, Chanel CC cream, for example. So it just depends kind of like what the product is.
yeah, I really like that and why shouldn't you be? But I really like how comfortable you are just using products that are there in the market. It's sort of, it shouldn't feel like that's a tricky, a
Yeah.
difficult thing to do. But I guess there might be some men that might have a bit of a barrier to shopping
Oh,
in that
definitely.
way.
Yeah. Oh,
Perhaps
definitely.
shouldn't do, but
No, but again, I'm in that environment every day, so
yeah.
it helps. But
So
at
it's
the same
not
time,
sort of scary to use it.
no, exactly. But at the same time, I can understand that it might be daunting if you're going for the first time into a department store and you need some kind of a help to enhance your look.
Mm,
So to approach a brand, because if you don't know even where to start, that's kind of like then the biggest challenge because you don't know where to start.
yeah. And I suppose you say, well, in the end, if you find the right product, it's easy enough to buy online, but you're gonna need to kind of match the right
Yeah,
tone
yeah,
and all those things, aren't you?
exactly.
Yeah,
But in that sense, that kind of like what I always say that those teams on counter are there to help you,
mm.
and you know
In a
that's their job.
non-judgmental way, and
Exactly. And
yeah,
they're more than happy to do that,
yeah,
because, and when you see many times women, when they have had their makeup done, how they feel afterwards, it should be the same for guys as well.
yeah. No, I totally agree. And where do you stand on? Would you ever consider treatments and tweakments and sort of more surgical things? Is that something you'd ever countenance or not?
I would definitely consider. I've never had Botox, but my thing is that once you start, you can't stop.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm trying to wait until
Holding back. Yeah,
exactly until
yeah.
I have to, and then I will do it. But in
Uh,
that sense, that
but
I am.
you don't have a philosophical issue against doing it. You could,
No, I don't. And in that sense, that if that makes you feel good,
yeah,
then why not? But
yeah,
it's then kind of like mindful of where you go and who does it. For example, I think that's really important that you do your research
yeah,
rather than just anybody doing those treatments
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can see some sort of horror stories, can't you, of either doing that kind of treatment tourism and going to places where there's not the follow-up care. And
Exactly. And
yeah,
it's almost like if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, in things like that, you shouldn't be looking for the cheapest option
No,
because
not with
that
your
usually is
skin
the
or your
worst.
body. Yeah, oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, Vesa, what are the things that bring you joy and happiness, perhaps outside of the work environment?
What brings me joy? Um,
Coffee?
Coffee, definitely, yes. I drink so much coffee.
Do
You
you?
wouldn't believe it. Yes.
How do you take it? In case I
Just
need
black.
to make you one, just
Just
black.
black.
Do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. But Finland is the biggest coffee drinking nation in the world.
Is it?
Yes.
I
But
didn't. I didn't know
it's
that.
so dark and cold in Finland, so you need something to keep you warm
Yeah.
and awake. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
probably where I get it from. What makes me happy? Obviously, my friends and family,
Yeah.
they always make me happy when I spend time with them. Obviously, I'd love to spend more time with them, but work and most of my friends and family being in Finland, I don't get to do
Mm.
that as
How
often. But
often do you
obviously,
get to go? Do you get to go home regularly?
I try to go at least twice a year, maybe three times. But obviously, I've got a great, friend group in UK as well,
Mm.
so I do get to see them as well. Exercising makes me happy, definitely.
Yeah.
Kind of like I loved exercising. That keeps me happy in that sense. And the last one, and you're probably going to laugh at this, that
No.
makes me what makes me really happy is watching brand new episode of Real Housewives of any city, be it Philadelphia,
Anywhere.
New York, Orange County. I don't care where they are, but as long as it's Real Housewives, that makes me really happy.
Yeah, but that's it's sort of it's that kind of downtime and just where you
Exactly.
can empty your thoughts and just escapism,
Exactly.
isn't it? There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Yeah, and
There's
I
there's
love that.
there's plenty of reality TV in our house too, and yeah, just that kind of kickback, not having to think too much stuff.
Exactly.
Whether we're watching, yeah, what we do, a bit of Love Island and
Yeah,
Apprentice, and all of
exactly.
that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, Vesa, thank you so much. It's
That's
been
brilliant.
great to talk to you and to find out a bit more about your work and about you. And it's been fascinating. And as I said, I'll mention some of those products and lead people to come and find out the good work you're doing over at Fenwick. But I hope we can see each other again in real life. I think we met a year or two ago at the O2 actually. We went
We
to
did.
Billie
Yeah,
Eilish, which
exactly.
was a really brilliant
It,
night.
it
And
was brilliant.
yeah, and I hope to see you again in the flesh very soon. But thank you for doing this.
No, that's fine. Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good weekend and take care.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye
Bye.
bye.